And jolly good morning to you all. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with me, your sensei, Bob. So, what's going on? Shame fog. And that's the process where the state or the corporate dynamic or whatever you want to call it, basically manipulates you through a mechanism, public school, you know, getting a driver's test, anything of that nature. And see, this would be good right now if there was somebody there that we could have a live chat with, right? Oh, so I've been doing this Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob for, going on 7 years at least, give or take, something like that. And, I get basically ignored. And that's fine because all I'm being done is dropped in as a pebble in the World Wide Web's pond. And it seems to have somewhat of an effect. Hey there, AI. How you doing, buddy? So anyway, last night I did 2 little videos, and they were pretty much just like my other ones. And I use a basic what's ever out there on the World Wide Web. I kind of responded, reflect um, that stuff that's in my thread and my whatever, and I play it back to you and make comments about it, and that's kind of part of my shtick. And somewhere, somehow, I like push the limit of that, and they, shame me by saying, "Oh, you're gonna have to blah blah blah," and so, I took their little class. And it's really fun if you've ever taken a YouTube class. They, tell you what, like from the textbook, and then they give you a little test of, multiple choice, and there's one answer they want, and you hit the wrong choice, and then hit the thing, and they say, no, that's the wrong answer. They hit another one, oh no, that's the wrong answer. Then you hit the on to the next. And that's kind of how we get trained, right? And so we're all in that process. Um, but see, that's fine. As Jesus said, let the Romans give to Caesar what is Caesar, and you know, take what's God. Anyway, so that was kind of amusing, and it's just like, they're watching. Because I was so ignored that I thought I could do or say anything, and it would be fine. Yeah. And what I did was, so it's this a great radio station, internet thing called Alternative Radio out of Boulder, Colorado. David Bonsignon, and his thing is he finds really interesting people and puts on a lecture at a college or this or that and records it, and that's a radio show. Or he interviews people, and he gets very interesting people. And he had this person, Pac-Man something or other, and she was quite erudite and quite well versed on the whole history and subject of this, the culture of digital surveillance. right? And that was good, And so I played it, and as a background, while I took a strip of a film called Lucy, right? And Lucy is a film where this girl, just not by her, her boyfriend says, "Here, take this briefcase and share, take it to this guy." And what are you doing? Would you ever back to Birmingham compound? Well, only if it could serve John that he could get out of his self implemented hell. I'm not going to go there to enable him to keep going, right? And that's all of us. I mean, I have three guardrails, right? Don't get involved unless you're going in to get the innocent out of harm's way, and you have a workable exit strategy. Don't get involved unless some help. Right? He is in need of some help, and I spent a good, you know, 15 months trying to help him, right? And I got thrown out in the middle of winter 32 times, with my life and every year goes by, I get older and less, more decrepit you know, so no. And there are people here I help, who actually seem to respond to it in a positive way. Uh, and if I do go there, um, he will not promise not to throw me out on a whim, right? And I live 300 miles from him, have no money, limited, very decrepit like me, physically, um, transportation, and so no, unless he really is willing. And my protocol would be, John. Okay, so we're gonna do YouTubes together, and it's basically me and you down in the basement in the fire next to the fireplace with the big windows at our back of the beauty of it all. And I want to basically um, deal in an interaction where I say, "So, John, um, how do you feel?" Right, and then he says what he says, and I say, "So, is that are you fearful or are you angry? And does the anger come from fear?" And then we talk about that. And then I would say, "So, do you feel, um, you know, guilty of anything via your feelings? Does that guilt come from shame? And what is that shame? How does that shame make you feel?" Right? I've tried this because I've used this protocol on many, many, many people, and it's really great. It cuts straight to the thing, right? Instead of going on about, oh, you feel anxious. Oh, well, why don't we try and breathe? Let's meditate. Blah blah blah. No. Oh, go see a doctor, get some pills. Blah blah blah. No, it's like you have to take responsibility, right? And you cannot change anything in your life unless you take responsibility. And that's like, so I took the YouTube little testy thing so I could free myself of that little black mark on my record here on YouTube land. And in a way, the black mark is okay. So I took their test, which was very edifying, right? And I should have like videotaped it, but I was half asleep when I took it. I couldn't read it. And I mean, I could read it, but I didn't have my glasses, so it was still blurry. It's like trying to read what you said. Did the do this before throw you out without warning? Yes, 32 times. He would just come down after drinking 40 cups of coffee, so he was psychotic. Oh, get out, can't take it. We would be in the middle of talking, and if I pushed or opened up a window to why he was the way he was being, he would get upset and scream and yell and threaten. And after the first time, which was, I was asleep, right? He had gotten this girl from Russia, and she had been on the plane from Russia into DC. He went down to get her. And she was starving. She didn't need anything. And can we get something that, no, 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 no. And I had this beautiful meal made, like, straight out of a restaurant. And I was the waiter. I had the towel over my arm. And I made a duck and fresh vegetables and made a dessert. And I had wines, I had a wine and tea and these cute little sweets to start off the meal. I had a warm antipasta and a cold antipasta, and I had a main meal. And then I had a dessert. I had this nice little cheesecakes that were hearts, right? And a nice little bottle of wine to drink with that, and some cheese. And I sent them up. And the girl just ate it. She was ravenous. And then, after the meal, she's like sitting back. Oh, yeah, that was good. Thank you, thank you. And we had a nice little conversation. And he got upset anxious about, because he couldn't interact in the conversation. He couldn't follow the conversation. I was asking the woman about who and what she does in Russia, what she was studying, da 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 da. And John got her through some kind of, male bride or something. Anyway, so they went up there, and I'm asleep, and like about 6 in the morning, he's like, get out, get out. And I said, John, it's still dark. Let me turn over, go to sleep, and get out now, you gotta go. And he had a hammer in his hand, and and I would say, well, this guy ain't gonna hit me, but he was so irate. His cortisol and adrenaline levels were like through the roof. I mean, I didn't take them, but you could see that. And so I was, summarily, and the girl was sitting out there naked, and she had a big Russian mink coat with a hood, and she was like smoking 4 cigarettes at once. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. And so I grabbed a few things and drove out, and then I had a great adventure. I had about $12 in my pocket. I did have a full tank of gas. I said, I wonder where I'm going to go. And I went down the road, down to the county road, and I knew this little road off to the side near the Blue Ridge Parkway, and went there and heated up my car and put car in a place so when the sun rose, it would A, wake me up, B, warm up the car. So it did. And I called a bunch of people, and nobody was around. There was no couch to stay out, no one around. So I said, And I had been part of this community in West Virginia years before, and so I drove up to 220 into West Virginia and hit this road that takes you over to 66, and then I went up to where the interstate is. And right there is a great little truck stop restaurant. And so I was going in, and this girl was sitting by the door with a cup spare changing, and she was wearing nice clothes, nice pair of pants, nice shoes, nice coat. And it was winter, and she had a kind of thin coat on. And she said, spare change, man? And I said, are you hungry? She said, yeah. Why do you want spare? I said, let me buy you breakfast. So I bought her breakfast and said, so what's your story? And her story was she came from a very well-to-do upper middle class family in Atlanta and gone to a really prestigious school. And she graduated and she couldn't find a job. It was near 08 when the crash happened. So her and her buddies basically were all in the same boat and decided that they would walk the AT, which they'd never done any kind of hiking. So she didn't have hiking clothes on. She just had, pants and a nice pair of shoes, not high heel, but comfy kind of shoes, but not hiking shoes. And she had made it to about where we were, right? Yeah, she probably, I said, when'd you leave? And she said, oh, around May. And we were going to go all the way up to the other end. And I said, May, and you're only here in Roanoke? I mean, that's or West Virginia. I said, that's pretty good, but that's like maybe, I don't know, a little more than half. And so I don't know if any of you ever hiked the AT or any trails like that, but it's one big party, one conga line. And anyway, so I said, my friends were out in the woods. We found this little abandoned house and we're in it. We're freezing. We have no food. And I came out here to get money to buy food. And I said, okay. So I said, so let's go. I said, I got a lot of food in my car, right? My car is like one big go bag. And we went up to where they were, and it was a nice little log cabin from whenever, but it was old. And the chinking was going, so the wind was like blowing through the logs. And this house was like a place where obviously high school kids had party, because the inside was and around it was just full of trash. But it had a gigantic keep, big fireplace with a cast iron arm with a big cast iron pot. It had a wood stove and it had a sink that had a pump. But anyway, so I looked at all this. I said, okay, let's get all the burnable garbage, the paper, cardboard, that kind of stuff, and make a pile right next to the keep, right? Let's go outside and get all of the other garbage and the burnable stuff. We'll put in that pile, and the other stuff like the candy wrappers and this and that could burn, but it's not paper, right? Let's use it for chinking. What's chinking? That's like we're going to stuff it between the logs so the wind doesn't blow through. Oh, okay. So we do that, and then there's like 5 of them there, and so I take 3 of them out to go get wood. Right? We go get first. We're going to get limbs, And don't we have to go to Walmart or Lowe's to buy wood? I said, no, it's here in the forest. We're just going to take it off the floor. What floor? The floor of the forest. Forest has a floor? I mean, these kids were like, and they were college educated, and they didn't have a clue. Now, this is John Birmingham to a T, but now he's pushing 50. Right? Well, it's so I studied to be a shrinky boy. I practiced as a shrinky boy, and I left that discipline because it was false. Right? It had a good mission statement, but it just wanted to manipulate you, put you through a test, make you take whatever process that the state or individual wanted to manipulate into what they want you to be. Right? And see, John is the poster boy of all of the above. That's why he's the patron saint of suffering, right? Again, why would I go back there just to be thrown out in the middle of winter? And it's going to be. I'd much rather stay where I am, but there are people that they are disconnected too, but they still want me to be okay. And they check me out. They buy me lunch every now and then. And mostly, when they have a problem, they'll come and get me and take me out, and I'll talk to them and give them insight, and they like that. And John couldn't even go there, right? He had no understanding of anything because, he's more than unstable, right? But he is stuck in his own psychoses, or whatever you want to call it. I don't like giving definitions because they're not just inappropriate. They don't really define what's going on, right? Like I said, this has more to do with trauma which causes fear, which causes anger, which then causes, usually, instead of violence, it causes guilt, which enables the person from doing anything. And shame is the deeper portion of guilt. Guilt is on the surface. Shame is in the depth, right? And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and wherever you are, welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. And we're talking about how we get manipulated in our sociological motif of living on this planet at this time, right? All this, the Matrix, the movie is it's brought forth movies themselves. They're made in Hollywood. What is Hollywood? Holly is the wood that's used in magic wands. And they constantly talk about Hollywood magic. And it is. It's a way to manipulate the masses, right? And back in the beginning, when films were just photographs on a loop that flickered, and they call them flickers, we live in that flicker reality of Plato's story of the cave, where we are, locked into a view straight in front of us. Reality is behind us, right? And its image is being projected through the into the cave where we are, stuck, and we see the shadow, and that's the life that we mostly live in, that shadow life. So there's four of you there. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And let's see, magic. Yeah, magic. Magic is one man's technology and another man's religion, right? And they're all, magic can be seen only through the ceremony. Religion is a ceremony. It's not a relationship. The Old Testament is constantly talking about a covenant with Elohim, right? That personal one. No, the ceremony doesn't bring that. What it does, it brings the group think together, right? And that group think, it's just like here on YouTube, is there manipulated, orchestrated by the establishment. Let's see. Hollywood is all smoke and mirrors, being a bunch of guys. Do me a really big favor. I don't have my glasses. I'll have to either leave the show and go looking for glasses, or and get distracted and have breakfast, or so put everything in large caps. And if you do that, then I can kind of read it, and it's not screaming at me. It's not against the protocol. You've been learning about nice gay syndrome. Barely. See, if that was in capitals, I could read it. Barely where we do what we do, think others want, instead of being authentic. Yes. No, the power structure can't have you as authentic. I was looking at some. I can easily misplay. I mean, I have a really great memory about everything, except what I just did 2 seconds ago, right? So if I put something down, like where are my keys, I won't, it'll take me 4 weeks to find them, even though they'll be right in front of me, right? So that is, he can't read it. He needs it in all caps. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Getting some glasses. Okay. I can get some glasses. See ya. Bye. I'm going to go now. I'm going to go find glasses. Might take me hours. Therefore, I won't. No. Just put it in caps, guys. I mean, I have some, it'll take me some time. I'll find them. And, so, anyway, I got to get going relatively soon. Get some glasses. Put it in caps so I can read it, right? So let's get back to the subject matter, right? And that is what is the the protocol? They talk about the protocol of Zion. What is the protocol? Every institution, every YouTube has a protocol, right? I thought I was semi-immune to it because I'm so ignored. I'm just saying, I'm not monetizing. I'm not doing any of those things that people motivated to do YouTube. I do YouTubes because I know that they are the pebble. I am the frequency not heard by many, and I am that pebble in the World Wide Web's pond. And those little vibrations go out and go into everything. That's why I do it. It helps people. Meaning, you want to talk to me, personal mano y mano, get a hold of me at the dudeawake42 at Gmail. Dudeawake, stay warm. That's why I'm here in the undisclosed place. This ain't the man's cave. I'm in this place, and it has relatively good heating. Let's see. As I get older, I'm developing another of my middle fingers getting stiff. Well, that's it's getting older. Look at these guys. I used them, for 60 years fixing things, but they still work. I mean, my endocrinologist and my my nerve doctor, they can't believe that I can walk and move and my body works, right? Because I did have a really good time for 20 years in the corporate hedonist world. I went along for the ride, and had a nice little cash flow, and basically lived on the fat of the land of the corporate structure. Right? I could make almost a six-figure salary for only working 11 weeks of the year, and I wouldn't go above. I never got to 100 grand. I could easily. I could have made $1 million every year, but I didn't, or two or three, right? But I didn't because I saw the people who did that. Like one of my best friend's son. He's a nice kid. He played baseball pretty well. He got to go brown on that, and so he met a lot of interesting people. And he met this one person, and I met him. Oh, one Thanksgiving when he was a freshman, he came home. So Jim, how you doing? And how's school? School's cool. I got a good straight, 3.6 average. He's the top, 80% of his class. And, I showed him how to take a test, how to study, how to interact with the professors so they like you, so they give you a good grade. Anyway, so he was doing all that stuff. And I said, so what, you got any plans for the summer? He goes, well, it's Thanksgiving. It's not even Christmas. I said, no. Have you met any friends or teachers who you like that are somewhat connected? And he goes, yeah, a bunch of bad people. And I said, oh. And he goes, yeah, I have a friend of mine whose dad works at Barclays. I said, you know what? Get your buddy to sign you up for an internship at Barclays, which he did. He went and crooned that guy better and met his father when his father came over from England and said, sir, I'd really love to work with for your institution as an intern. I just need a kind of place to stay and a little something to eat. And the guy goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what? In my department, definitely have room for that. We could use someone of your, you know, just talking to me about it. It shows me that you want to do this. And we have a really big house, and out there um, near we have a like guest house, and stay there. And go to work with me, and blah blah blah. So he did. They did that, and before he went off, I said, get everything you can. Be, a go getter, right? Be yourself, not the smartest guy, not the most full of yourself. You want to learn, you want to know. Ask good questions, don't just blab, and, um, move forward, right? Anyway, long story short, he did that, and I told him that just don't go back to Barclays. Go to tell the Barclays people I said, find the power, the movers and shakers of the institution, and try to be their assistant. And he did do that. And like again, he wasn't a 4.0 guy. He was a 3.6 guy, and he was that go getter, and really, and he's got a very amiable personality, and he did that anyway. So the bottom line. Uh, get to it, bro. Just joking. Anyway, so James is now, a multi-millionaire. The last time I saw him was 2011 when I went to one of my 128 godchildren's wedding. She found me, called me up, and said, "Hey, I want you to come and be, walk me down the aisle and getting married. You're the closest thing I have to a father." Right? I said, "Oh, okay, no problem." And I went to New York, and I stayed with James. I stayed with a lot of people, right? Um, and that was great. I spent about 3 weeks in New York back in 2011. And saw all my old friends and saw what happened in New York, and glad I had gone, because pretty much every one of my friends who stayed there pretty much was doing the same thing we were doing in 1970. But now they became top of the heap of that, and were making money and had a nice place to live. But it was like living in a gilded cage, right? And that was James. He had a house in France and a house in Italy, and he had a house in London, and he had about 5 houses in New York, and they were all like $1 million houses, right? And he had a this 3 really amazing apartments in New York City, each 10, $20 million. But to him, they were all nice, but they were investments. He was just holding on to them until he could make 20 or 50 or 100% over what he put into it. So he hadn't. He had about 3 girlfriends, and he was, living the life. But I said, "So James, play baseball anymore?" He goes, "Nah, you need a team." He goes, and at our corporation we have baseball teams, but they're it's so it's like it's not even playing baseball, so I don't do it. I do shoot hoops a little bit, and I do this, and I do swim. But I said, so so how about community? How about friends? He goes, well, I have people I go out with, but it's always kind of business. All of my sociality is revolving around business. I said, how about books? You read any books? He goes, well, yeah, I read, but I read the books I need to read for work, and I read books that I know everyone else is reading, so I can talk about it and be part of that. So, are you interested in those books and the conversations? He says, no, no, really, there is no. He goes, the conversation you and I are having now, I don't have any of these. How about your girlfriends? He goes, nah, they're just with me because I have a lot of money. I'm just with them because I got big tits and they fuck really good. And I said, so how about finding a mate and having a family? And then you could put your energy socially, culturally into that. He goes, yeah, I'm still, I'm just 30. And Okay. So anyway, 10 years later, he did get married, and he went to his wife is the daughter of she's the granddaughter of some big super duper banking guy, like one of the top five guys, and they got married. It's like almost an arranged marriage, and they have two kids, and they live that life. And I haven't really talked to him since 2011. I didn't get because his wedding was in Italy in a castle. He had the money to fly everyone there and put them up in the castle and have this big, like, Snow White princess wedding. And people would think that's, he's definitely an A-lister. And he definitely put himself there because his dad was a plumber, my best friend, plumber. I was the electrician. And we were both artists, right? And we lived an artist life. We lived in lofts and stuff. And that's what James grew up in. And his mom was an artist too. But she was a really good, worked for lawyers and ran offices. And so between the two of them in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, um, they made enough money to bring up the kids and send them off to college. And the daughter is a big, big time lawyer and does most of her work pro bono. She works for a big firm, big fancy corporate firm, and she's a pro bono girl, to give them a good life. So this is what my YouTubes are going to be, more or less, for the time being. It's a stream of consciousness storyline of this. Now, you guys did pretty good here, and you at least came. Whose comments are come on, buddy, put it in caps. Why do you think? Bring it up. Well, part of you'd have to be a little more. Why do they? Who are they? Are you talking about? Bring it up. Right? Whose comments? Well, it seems like two different things there. One, whose comments are he reading, right? So I have no idea what you're talking about, and why do they bring it up again? Who are they? So I can only guess, and this is just a guess. The reading I was talking about my godson James and the millionaire banker, and he only reads books, so can converse with the higher ups, the mucky mucks, and he's part of the elite. He's in the pyramid. He's like not at the point yet, but he is like 3 or 4 bricks below. He's way above 95% of the rest of the population, right? And socioeconomic means and power and all of that. But is he happy? What's going on? And my friends in New York, I can talk to them every now and then, but they're all so busy. Now, the question, why do they bring it up? I started out saying that, I got finger wagged at me by YouTube. And why do they bring it up? Because I've been doing it 7 years and never a comment by them at all. I mean, once a month they send me the analytics of my channel, and they said, if you want to be monetized, if you want to do this, we think your content is good enough, and blah. And again, it's probably written by AI. And I love you, AI. But I think they bring it up now because the time is at a place. I'm out here in the woods. I've now been out here in the woods for 5 years, and I made my life out here inconvenient because the end of our civilization, back, in a million years from now, when cockroaches are anthropologists and they're looking at us, and so why did their civilization collapse and go into a 20,000 years of the Dark Ages? Well, because we have been domesticated to only want comfort, right? We are addicted to convenience and belief, right? And in my world, I don't have either, right? I have faith. And faith is something that's given to you by the higher powers, not the corporate higher powers, but those higher Elohims, who's that guy, right? And we look at God and we anthropomorphize it and turn it into us, and God is in us. God is a whole power. Parcelus, he was, back there, but he was the candle that lit the the getting out of the dark ages. He was the candle that let us out. And he was a Jewish rabbi, really smart, and he was trying to analytically parse the Hebrew texts, right? The Torah, which if you take it from, take Hebrew into Greek, into English, Torah means you suck. And then Tama is more the esoteric, the hidden knowledge, and the Kabbalah is the occult. Right? And occult is just, again, magic that is someone else's science, someone else's technology. Anyway, thanks for coming. I've been doing this now. Oh, look at that. Perfect timing. 41 minutes and 14 seconds. Prometheus. Yep. I'll be back. I'm going to go find my glasses, and I'm going to make myself a little something to eat because I am a little hungry. I'm going to, as martyred artists would say, Magic Man, I'm going to take a dump, right? Which we all do. And I think it's part of God's gift. I mean, if you're sitting on the throne and you pinch out a brick and and it explodes out into the bowl, that's one of the most extraordinarily good feelings. Wow, got that out. Oh, I feel so much better. So I've got my body in a pretty regular state where it eliminates right about now and just before we go to bed. Two best times to eliminate, right? So, and it does nice, smooth turds, nothing, no big bricks. Meaning, if I eat the wrong things and do the wrong stuff, yes, I won't, be a little constipated, and then I'll have to eliminate a brick. And so I'm going to go now, and I'll be back in an hour or two. We'll give or so, right? Let me say goodnight. Okay, sweet dreams, Prince. And I'll be back. And remember, more thumbs up. Come on, there's 4 of you there. Let's have 4 likes, Give that algorithm, oh, they like him. We're not going to bother Al Bob anymore. That's the 2 shows they took down. They really went after the connection of the military industrial complex to your psyche, right? Go watch that movie, Lucy, right? And it really comments on many, many. It's quite a thoughtful movie, and it's on the YouTube. You can go watch it. You don't have to pay for it. And the go on to davids.com. I think it's .org. Alternativeradio.org. Right. And I'm sure you go on there, it'll tell you all the radio stations he's on and what time they're on, what you can listen. It has a big list of all the shows he has. I think he will send you a copy of whatever it is. And some of them you can actually play right there on that site. But he'll send you anything that he's created, right? And it'd be nice if you gave him a few dollars, because the only money he keeps that thing. He's been doing it for almost 40 years. From whatchamacallit, donations. Okay. Okay. Sweet dreams, everyone. I'll talk to you later. Let's see. Hit this little end stream.